Welcome back to Phase Zero. BD here with my co-host Jenna Anderson, and right now we have a very special guest who's diving in to Black Widow with us, the writer, the man behind the curtain, Eric Pearson. Eric, thank you for joining us on Phase Zero.
Thank you so much for having me.
First of all, congratulations on Black Widow being a very big success so far. And I mean, I love the movie.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much.
So listen, we're going to chop this up because we have a lot of questions. You've also written Thor Ragnarok. You've worked on a lot of the one-shots. You also have dabbled, I think, with Infinity War and Endgame. So you're a Marvel vet.
I was like writing support in that.
So, sure. Okay. So, but how does it feel to finally?
I got some stuff in there that I'm really proud of, I have to say.
Oh, well, I want to hear about that in a second. But how does it feel to finally have Black Widow out in the world after this long?
Surreal. It's just been so long. Like I'm always nervous sharing work. Nothing is ever complete. Nothing ever feels totally correct to me. So it's already nerve-wracking to share work. So then when you're starting to gear yourself up to share work, and then the world shuts down for 17 months or whatever it's been now, and you forget that you made a movie and you forget when you made a movie. Like it's very strange. But I've now been back to the movies 2 times. I went to see Quiet Place 2 on my own first, and then saw Black Widow at our fan event. And I'm just so excited. I'm so happy that movies are back. And if anything, I'm really hoping that this movie brings people together again. Vaccinated, safe people who are being safe.
Fully agree with you on that.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So as we established, you have worked on so many other Marvel projects. How would you say the work on Ragnarok and Infinity War and Endgame kind of influenced your work on Black Widow? Like, was there anything that kind of you took with you to this project?
If anything, probably just the comfort of knowing that I could kind of do this work, because the Natasha Romanoff story is so different than a Thor Odinson or an Avengers story. Like Ragnarok probably is the farthest on the other side of the spectrum, actually, of a Black Widow movie, as far as where it takes place and how many galaxies it spans and how many orgy spaceships it has. And so it was more just that, okay, this is I've kind of been in the trenches now. I know this is going to be very intense. It's also a very tricky kind of puzzle with where we know the main character is going to go. Just don't get overwhelmed and kind of know that all you can do is your best ideas and your best work of that day.
Yeah. I gotta ask, are you the one who cut my boy Nova from that Infinity War opening?
Was that a thing?
Marcus and McFeely told me once upon a time that they had a version of Infinity War that instead of Hulk crashing into Earth, it was Nova, because if you remember, Avengers vs. X-Men had that kind of start where Sam Alexander came in, and since Xandar was destroyed,
I didn't know. That must have been either before or discussed after. No, I never heard of the Nova version.
You're off the hook. You're off the hook.
I'm just annoyed that I'm just like, oh wow, look at this. I was there for 6 months in pre-production. You knew something that I don't know. How's that happen?
What was the scene you were talking about that you added in there?
The thing is traveling time through Ant-Man's body. Somebody peed my pants. That was. Joe and Anthony Russo have a brutal system of pages where we'll just get around a table and everyone has to read. And we're not actors, like Joe's an actor. He has some acting skill, but like everyone else here who's like, we're just cold reading these things. And it's so, it kills my heart sometimes because it's so stressful to have that happen. That was the one thing when we were working through a pass that I'd done in the draft. I had the whole thing of we need a time travel goes wrong scene. And I wrote that, and Joe couldn't get through it without laughing. And I was like, yes, I think I got one. I got one in for sure. And all the way to somebody peed my pants. I don't know if it was baby me or old me. And then Rudd adds in.
If you need somebody to fill in for you on the next table read, I got you. Okay.
You've got range for all characters. I won't tell anybody
what I hear, okay, or what I say.
You know what? If I have that power, I'll share it.
So one of the aspects of the movie that I love the most is the dynamic between Natasha and Yelena. I think it shines so much throughout the movie, but especially in that gas station sequence. I think the dynamic between the two of them is just so beautiful. What kind of influenced that big sister, little sister relationship and how you brought that to life in the script?
I don't know really where the influence came from because I'm an only child. I don't have any brothers or sisters. I guess probably just from all just life. For me, it was also we're trying to approach this movie from a very Natasha centric position. We wanted this to be her movie, her story, her a study of who she is and where she came from and why she is the person she is today. Uh, and in investigating that, you realize that Natasha is a pretty closed off kind of person who by resetting her life after defecting from the Red Room has really made uh, let the world get to know her on her terms. So in thinking of this as Natasha's story, her emotional journey, it's like, well, we've got to knock down those walls. Who's the best person or people for that? People, it's got to be people from before her life who knew her in a way that she's trying to forget, who can affect her in a way that she doesn't want them to. And it just made sense immediately from the Yelena Belova character to be, and it also works for Yelena's character, Florence's character of just, she's badgering her and she's being really funny, but in all of those, I believe she's reaching out and being like, why didn't you bring me to hang out? Like, it's all coming from a kind of emotional place of like, I liked hanging out with you. Why didn't you like hanging out with me? It's one of those great kind of couple of scenes that does more than one thing. It gets laughs, but it also kind of, you see, how these people feel about each other on a larger level.
Yeah, that dynamic was the chemistry between the actresses too was so good.
Yeah, that's the other thing. I mean, I can't sit here and just claim that I invented this total magic. The fact that Scarlett Johansson and Florence Pugh are there and they get it, and once they're there with each other, their energy is so fun. Like they really, loved each other. They were having a lot of fun, even when they were, even when they're shooting that big fight, the amount of times that we'd call cut and they would just burst into laughter and be having they were just having so much fun together. It really, it shone from within.
Yeah. Red Guardian was a great addition to the MCU. David Harbour, speaking of great performances, embodied that role so well. Alexi's an idiot. Like he's so, I mean, yeah. He's such an idiot. Like he's almost delusional, I think, because of these Captain America stories, first of all. But I can't wait to see if those are going anywhere. But he also, he seems redeemable maybe because the movie starts with him doing something really terrible by handing these two little girls over to the Red Room. But it ends with him, showing a human side. How do you tiptoe that line of making a character who can do something so bad, but also has like a redemptive quality and side to him?
Well, again, it helps to have David Harbour because he can do naughty things and still make you kind of laugh. He can do it in a way that's very charming. And I mean, it's funny, Alexi, yeah, on the surface, he is an idiot. He's also, but I think more accurately, he's a narcissist and he bet on the wrong horse. I love the humor as far as like stories you can only tell in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. You've got this pre-established is the amazing fairy tale of Steve Rogers, a scrawny guy who's just got such a big heart. All he wants to do is fight in the war so he can fight the bad guys, and he gets it. So then meanwhile, I'm just thinking like, okay, well and I'm sure they were thinking as well in the comics, like there's got to be an arms race, super soldier serums, an arms race. Just so happens that the Soviet Union gives it to a very self-assured kind of narcissistic guy who wants all the glory. And then I love just turning the irony of it, that this guy who wants to talk about wants to be a hero, wants to be great, he has to go undercover and pretend he's not strong. So like I loved it. There's a kind of, you understand why he wants recognition. He was sold a dream. And even though he's a narcissist, I don't know, I've got friends that are narcissists. And I think that ultimately I think one of the big kind of moments that's that gets you there is when he pulls them together and says, everything worked out for you. And you went on to topple regimes and ruin empires. You killed more people than ever. And you really believe he's so proud of them. So that he's a good guy. You may be right. He is just an idiot. He just picked the wrong lane and doesn't really, and he can't see how much of a dope he is. But I mean, he also does the key. I don't know. I always try and find the emotional moment and then kind of ruin it. So what we also did was when he realized that he couldn't save them, or he thought he couldn't save them in the third act, he's there and he starts this big heartfelt confession to Natasha, who's actually Rachel Weisz, Melina. So he's bearing his soul. So you see that he's trying to do better. And then, oh wait, it's not her. And then he tries to talk to Natasha again. Wait, he doesn't have an earpiece. He's just trying, he's seeing, like, you want to have his redemptive arc, but it's almost more fun to never let him get all the way there. Because I almost feel like the biggest moment of growth for him is at the very end when he doesn't talk. He chooses to, when she's like, do you got something to say? And he says, I just screwed up. You know, like, I think you know how I feel now. And him not talking about himself and how he feels about her and how he wants her to feel about him is almost a bigger gift.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a really good point. Okay, so this next question is me just kind of trying to be a fly on the wall for you developing kind of Easter eggs and stuff and hearing about that, because it's not a coincidence that Yelena refers to him as Crimson Dynamo, and he arm wrestles a guy in prison named Ursa and then calls him the Big Bear. So I mean, I would, yeah, I would love to know, like, are those like significant? Are the, like, how do those come into play? Because they're obviously Winter Guard references, but we don't know if there's a Winter Guard yet.
We just do them as like Crimson Dynamo. I literally just threw in there as like it felt like the right thing because Yelena shit talks her family in a snarky kind of way. It felt on character for her, the same way that she says, "Oh, if Drakov killed you," to Natasha, she said, "If Drakov killed you, one of the big ones would come get you." What do you mean the big ones? Implying that she's not a big Avenger, that she's not a god from space or a rage monster. Like, that's just needling. So when she's pissed at Alexei, she's going to needle him and call him by the wrong name intentionally. And so I just, for some reason, Crimson Dynamo was in my head. I knew it. I remembered it from a childhood. I didn't read any comics or do any research. I just threw it in there as dialogue. It was like, well, if someone has a problem with it at Marvel, they're going to let me know. And then everybody read it. No one had a problem. And then that draft just remained. No one had a problem. I was like, okay, there we go. Like, that one just made it through. Sometimes Marvel will come to you of like, ooh, we've got this thing. Here's a way to sneak this in. And it's, not a mandate, but a suggestion that's 99% of the time correct. Like, you should just do it. It's a free win. But no, it was like, and also I think that's some of the kind of brilliance, is that they're planting all these seeds, but they're not, they're not watching. I'm going to mix some metaphors here. They're planting seeds, but they're not watching pots waiting for them to boil. They plant the seeds, and then if they're organically doing something else and they're like, oh wait, would having Russian Bear be helpful for a streaming series 2 years from now? Or would, the reveal that the Crimson Dynamo has been out there and wherever, would that be helpful in Avengers 8? Like, it's there if you need it. And it's, I think as long as you're not actively disrupting something else that someone else is doing somewhere else in the universe, it's just I feel like you get rewarded for adding to the playground.
Yeah, it seems that way often.
Yeah.
Amazing. So the approach to Drakov in the movie is just so powerful and so interesting. I love the fact that he is just a genuinely misogynistic, just evil person, and that there is not necessarily room for redemption as the film goes on. What was the research process? Yeah. Yeah. So speaking to that aspect, what was it that you wanted to represent with his position, and how was that research process kind of like? Because I know myself and other women that I've talked to who have seen the movie are just so blown away by the way that the movie handles misogyny, and the way that the power structure that women have to deal with is just kind of turned into the script for this movie.
Well, it was a lot of discussion. I talked a lot with Kate Shortland and Scarlett and Kevin and Brian about what our intentions were with themes and all that. And Kate and Scarlett especially very, very like wanted this to be a clear message against misogyny, against oppression, against controlling women's bodies, but also by just sheer logistics of the script, that we don't get to. The script kind of had or the storyline had a bit of a getting the band back together vibe to it. So just by that, and also by the nature that Drakov is this secret enemy in the shadows, he can't really be on the field. Like he has to be hidden, so we don't really get to see him until the third act, besides a few kind of check-ins. So because we had limited time, it was like, all right, we got to go pedal to the metal with this guy. He's a piece of shit right out the gate. He's a cowardly man who has accumulated a lot of kind of superficial power, but is basically isolated in the dark, telling himself what a big man he is. One of the harder parts is that we have that sort of classic Natasha Romanoff 4-dimensional chess reverse interrogation going, and shooting that was hard because it was hard for other people, and it made me remind them. They're like, we're going too rough, like we're hurting her too much. He's just kind of, and I was like, remember, she's in control here. Like, remember, the whole point of this thing is that she's working him, and we have to remember that. It was just hard to watch. It was hard to just remember, like, okay, yeah, this is Natasha's in control. It's her plan. She can take the punch. She can break her nose. That was like the ultimate comic book moment that I wanted, which is it's not Drakov in the comics, but a different guy has the pheromone lock on her. And I remembered it from 10 years ago, that there's just a frame of her looking up with the blood in her teeth after having broken her nose. I can't smell you anymore. That was one of my kind of hills to die on. I was like, we got to get this in. She's never looked cooler in the comics than when she's turning it also felt like one of those great kind of like professional wrestling, the fight's turning moments. Like, oh my God, Hulk Hogan's hulking up again. Or like, wait, they were playing possum all along. It just felt like a really fun moment to, hopefully the audience is very uncomfortable with how terrible this guy has been. And you've gotten a sense of like, Jesus, like this guy has got to go. And then you want the kind of charge, like get him, like that's the turn we really wanted there.
She was so.
I went a little off your question, but
no.
I hope
that was perfect.
That was a great answer. And it just made Natasha look so tough as nails. Like, it was great how she was totally in control. The Taskmaster reveal, it fulfills, the Drakov's daughter mystery, one of the big questions two of the big questions about Natasha's past, both Budapest and Drakov's daughter. There's a similar.
Are you saying Budapest now? Are you?
What's that?
Are you saying Budapest now? Are you?
Listen, I've learned my lesson. I've been there, and when I was there, I said Budapest, and now I'm never saying that again.
I only say Budapest. I don't feel European enough to say it that other way. But there was, as you could tell from the movie, there was a lot of conversation on that set.
There is, and I do feel like if I go up to my friends and I'm just like, it's Budapest, they're gonna be like, what are you, some like uppity traveler? Like, you're just another American like the rest of us. Come on.
Yeah, exactly.
But listen.
All right, sorry to interrupt. You were saying, but
it's Budapest for me from now on. But so the reveal is that Taskmaster is not the Tony Masters character from comics, but Antonia Drakov. And there's a similar reveal like that in the MCU in Iron Man 3, like a similar type of twist from the comics where the Mandarin is an actor. It's not the Mandarin from comics. That I remember when Iron Man 3 came out, some people loved it. Some people had there was backlash from fans and some critics who were comic purists. And the Taskmaster conversation, a lot of people, I haven't really seen that yet. It's only been a day, but I haven't really seen people have an issue. But I would love to hear, did you have I will say, I got one. I made the mistake of looking in direct message requests, and someone said, I don't mean to be out of line, but Taskmaster was the biggest betrayal of my life. And I was just like, I got mad for a second, and then I was like, well, you've had a pretty good life. Then.
Yeah, no kidding.
The worst thing that's ever happened to you, then you should be psyched. Yeah. If someone in a movie wasn't who you wanted them to be. Well,
the Mandarin one had such a strong reaction, apparently, that there was a one shot to remedy it, and now we're getting a Mandarin or a new version of the Mandarin with 10 rings in Shang-Chi. Did you guys have a conversation about making that change, or was there ever a comparison or a thought about those two ever being an issue?
Well, there was no, I mean, it was more discussion of how do we make, because Taskmaster was going to be involved, and there was versions before I came that was Tony Masters, and it felt, I kept thinking, I was like, can this guy somehow not just be a goon? I don't want, because Drakov in the Red Room is the thing that's tied into Natasha personally in her past of giant nefarious, that as we learned, the spy station that is circling the globe in the atmosphere. So why is there this guy, like, why would this guy be an arm of them? That's what I kept trying to be like, what is, I trust me, I looked very, very far for like, how do we get this Tony Masters guy to believably be an agent of the Red Room? And then it just kind of leaned more towards other things were making sense. Other parts of the puzzle were adding up. Oh, they stole from Ohio the cellular blueprint of the basal ganglia, the way to deconstruct free will. Okay, they've got the ability to rebuild the mind. Oh, Drakov's daughter, she used him. Natasha used her as bait, blew her up. Well, what if she didn't survive? And this guy who has a lot of brain science, like, was that a good way to find these photographic reflexes? It just seemed to make more sense. And we kind of, I mean, that's the good thing, is they really, at Marvel, they kind of treat you for your story. Like, is this working for your story? And everyone kind of felt like it was. So we went with it. It felt like it made it more personal. And I mean, I hope that fans, like, I know that some won't, but it's also, again, like, I don't think they did that one shot to correct it. I think they just did that one shot for the Mandarin for fun. But like, who knows? Maybe like now apparently there's the 10 rings after all in Shang-Chi. I don't know.
For the record, I thought it was fine. I was cool. I was cool with it. I was like, that's a nice twist on Natasha's life. I thought it was a cool, fulfilling plot point.
Yeah, I mean, I just some people, I don't know. I think some people want to be angry no matter what, and I just want to try and tell a story that makes emotional sense. So
that's fair.
Sometimes we both can't have our thing. Sometimes we both can't get what we want, and I'm very sorry they don't get what they want. But I think
you did pretty good. I think you did.
I agree. Yeah, completely.
Thanks.
So there were rumors before the movie came out for a long while that we were going to see Tony Stark in some capacity, either in a scene that was like following the events of Civil War, or that was a deleted scene. Was that ever part of the discussion, or either way, do you know why those rumors kind of started?
You know what? I feel bad to the person who asked me this the other day, and because I said there was never any discussion. But I do remember now that one version of the script prior to me literally had written into it the end moment of Civil War with Tony and Natasha, of like, I'm not the one who has to watch it, but it was old footage. It would have been, hey, audience, remember where we are. We're going to key off this moment of her. So it wouldn't have been Robert Downey, at least to the best of my knowledge. That's the only time I ever saw Tony Stark's name in, was just kind of a flag planted reminder of like, hey, we're right at the end of Civil War. But yeah, no, I remember when those rumors came out, I was in London in our war room office, and I was like, I just looked around, I was like, am I supposed to be like, I have the script right here, like Tony Stark's not in it, like, and everyone's like, no. Did you see anything? No, we didn't. I don't know where it came from, besides, unless somebody got a very old version where this kind of scene, which wasn't even a new scene, I don't know. I don't know where it came from.
That must happen on sets all the time, because there's so much stuff that comes out. Sometimes it's true, sometimes it's not. But that's pretty interesting.
Yeah,
well, it's also like, there also might be, I don't know how people would find it, but there's a lot of material written sometimes, like I had a Captain Marvel screenplay that I wrote in the Marvel Writers Program that is 100% different than the version that that came out. But I remember a few years ago I found like a box of stuff, and there was a couple of drafts of that, and I was like, I probably got to shred these, or like, is it okay? And then I was thinking, what if someone found this? And there's just a lot of stuff out there. Sometimes people might find the exact right page that didn't get shredded or fell out of I don't know.
I'll tell you right now, that fully would be on our website. Like, Thanos was in a version of Captain Marvel script. I promise you, we were writing that story if we find that page.
Yeah.
There was no Thanos. There was no. I'm trying to think of who the villain was. I mean, it was Supreme Intelligence in some sort, but
right.
No, it was completely 100% different.
So going off of that and kind of the larger MCU, this movie is full of so many interesting kind of references to other films that you weren't necessarily involved in, of like the callback to Winter Soldier with the face-changing technology. How deeply did you study the other MCU movies to kind of pull in all those references?
Embarrassingly, not very much at all, because I've just seen them a lot. Like I kind of don't need to. And that's like how my brain works. Like I'll forget someone who I've met 5 times, but I can remember, oh yeah, that's what that's what Bucky said to Cap at that point, or that's what Lord Baelish said to Sansa Stark in that episode. My brain just like holds content more than it holds human interactions. So I don't know. I was like pretty good at remembering what had happened, what was going on. And if ever I was unsure, I was always, they were, this was pre-Disney Plus too. So they were always pretty good at getting me this movie to check out, so I could confirm whether or not I was right or wrong.
Now, I want to ask about Mason, O.T. Fagbenley's character. This dude's connected, man. How much of a story did you flesh out to make sure he fits in, and like, or have you like done any of that? And is that?
Yeah, well, no, OT and I had a long talk about his backstory, which was like not even so much like we were just kind of like writing the Mason backstory in our heads, just kind of like at a pub probably, or it was over the phone, but we was just talking of like, this is how I imagine them having met, and why he's kind of in her debts, and whatever kind of chemistry, how much has been actuated or not. Ultimately, like his character served the greatest purpose, not only just logistically as someone who can get her anything when she needs it in a tough point, but I think that moment of him was really important when she walks into the bedroom and he's just asleep, and there's something you're like, I would think, as someone who's seen Natasha Romanoff in 8 movies, like, wait a minute, I know her. I don't know this guy. Who's this guy? Like, how is she so comfortable with this guy? It was kind of setting the audience up to, oh, you really don't know everything about her. She's got people that Cap doesn't know. She's got entire stories but yeah, I had a lot of, I probably have documents of it there, and I would love to see just the the how they met kind of story. But I'm a sucker. I'd see all those stories. I really like I also just like the idea of the fixer. I always found like in movies or in books or anything, the person who like mysteriously is is mysteriously anywhere and has the 2 different phones with everyone's number in it to get stuff. Like, it's just trades and favors. I always like that character.
So we got 2 last questions here for you. Jenna's got one first.
So you mentioned that you would love to see just like so many other stories with Natasha's arc. Do you think that this is the end of the road for her solo stories, or do you think that there's more that can be explored?
I mean, I would have to, I know that there always can be more to be explored. I mean, there's plenty of comics, and there's so many different ideas that can be done, but I do kind of think this is the end of the line. We talked about this as the farewell story. That's how Scarlett, Kate, Kevin, and and Brian discussed it. They kept saying over and over again, this is our farewell. So I feel like I do think it is the end of the line. And then watch me be proven wrong in like a month. Like I don't know anything for sure, but the way we talked about, the way we approached this movie, and all the way up to locking it in post, was like, this is goodbye.
So, and my last thing, one of the things we talk about, a lot of the fans talk about, is the fact that Natasha never really got a funeral in Endgame, that she fell off Vormir, and then we moved so quickly back into the battle. She made that sacrifice, and then Tony got a whole funeral. And in this movie, the post-credit scene, we see a really touching sequence of a gravestone. And I don't know if you guys like fleshed this out, but like, did somebody go get her off of Vormir? Like, is she like, please, I hope they didn't leave her there.
Listen, I don't know what happens to your body once you are the one who gets sacrificed or sacrifices yourself on. That's some kind of high mystical, stuff going on there. I don't think anybody went and grabbed the corpse. I don't think so. How we saw it is, and I imagine in my mind, kind of monuments and memorials to Natasha Romanoff around the world. I think that her story came out in the kind of after the final battle, and was like, hey, by the way, everyone, this pretty, so everyone kind of did their own tribute. This one I felt was an erected, a tombstone erected in Ohio, where they were last had, that was done by Elena, that was done by the family, as like this is where we would lay her to rest, as a just a private thing for them, which I thought was really touching. And then of course I wanted to make it obnoxious and funny with the arrival of Julie Louis-Dreyfus blowing her nose and being, because we don't exactly say Ohio, we do say that she's allergic to the Midwest, and that was kind of that was our tip to it. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure that there has to be, or at least in my brain's version of the MCU, there are statues and plaques and stuff to Natasha Romanoff around the world, scholarships, everything.
Yeah, well, I love that. It was really like just seeing her tombstone made me emotional, and then seeing Yelena there whistling, like it felt like the closure we needed as Natasha fans. So thank you for that. Now tell us what happens in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, and what team Val is assembling, and everything that's coming up next, please.
I don't know. I actually don't know. I just I was talking to my producer Brian Chevik the other day and was like, I really don't know. For the first time in a while, I really kind of don't know what's going on. And I was like, and we're arranging a time where I'm forcing him to sit me down at some point and give me kind of some of the major points, because since I was one of the first ones to get to see the Endgame and Infinity War scripts, I felt as cool and in the know as you possibly could.
That's a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
And you just walk a little taller, you kind of you feel just better, and you just knowing that it's just a great feeling. And now I have
you
none
feel
of
that little implant in your head buzzing as soon as you start think about sharing a little too
good. They just remind you that they're there. Yeah. So so yeah, no, it's I don't know what's going on. I would love to be able to share it all, but I actually don't know.
Well, listen, you've put out 2 bangers already. I'm a big fan of your work, and it's been an absolute pleasure to talk with you, man. Thank you so much for the time.
Thank you, Brendan, Jenna. It was nice to talk to you guys. I love people who pay that close attention. That's what my brain remembers too.
We appreciate you paying attention to the details the way you do as well. We're all part. I think we're part of the extended Marvel family. We're certainly not immediate family, but we'll be the step cousins who are the MCU customer support.
Absolutely.
Hey, everyone's welcome at the barbecue.
Okay.
Eric, thank you. I'll let you go, man. Thank you so much for the time, and we'll talk to you soon.